Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Board Game: How Smart Women Become Corporate Directors by Betsy Berkhemer-Credaire, narrated by Randye Kaye. A standing ovation. Two remarkable trailblazers. Shirley Hufstedler in Los Angeles, one of the first women corporate directors, is now retired from Harman International, Hewlett-Packard, and U.S. West. Born in 1925, only 5 years after the U.S. ratified the 19th Amendment and finally women could vote, she was one of a handful of women who went to University of New Mexico and Stanford Law School. In 1968, President Lyndon Johnson appointed her judge, U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. Although not the first woman to serve on the Federal Court of Appeals, the Honorable Shirley Hufstedler was, for most years of her service, the only woman among 100 judges nationwide. Appointed the first-ever Secretary of Education by President Jimmy Carter, she was considered a possible candidate for Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court at a time when she would have been the first woman appointed to the court. She became well acquainted with Bill Hewlett when they both served on the national committees to choose Rhodes Scholars and White House Fellows. After her term as Education Secretary ended, he asked her to join the Hewlett-Packard board, where again she was the first woman. Thank you, Shirley Hufstedler, for leading the way and opening the doors. Dr. Judy B. Rosner, retired from the Paul Merage School of Business at UC Irvine, has been a beacon for working women for decades. She received her bachelor's degree at UCLA, went to California State University, Fullerton for her master's, and Claremont Graduate University for her doctorate. She set the pace in 1990 in Harvard Business Review with her article entitled Ways Women Lead. She co-authored Workforce America, Managing Employee Diversity as a Vital Resource, and in 1997 wrote the book America's Competitive Secret, Women Managers. Then, in directorship in May 2003, Judy had the audacity to proclaim, "Women on corporate boards make good business sense." Outspoken, respected, and tireless, she was a regular columnist for the Los Angeles Times, for the Orange County Business Journal, and a commentator on the PBS television program Life and Times. She has inspired countless women, including me, to achieve their fullest potential. Thank you, Judy Rosner, for your great sense of humor and for encouraging women to never give up. Introduction. Goodbye, Monopoly. The board game, How Smart Women Become Corporate Directors, answers the questions asked by more and more women today. How do I get on a corporate board? What career choices should I make so I can ultimately serve on a corporate board? And having more women on corporate boards couldn't be more important to America today. Strengthening the business foundation of our country by making sure women have a voice in corporate boardrooms. To be more successful, the country and American corporations need gender diversity at the highest levels of decision-making. Getting more women on more boards takes the same kind of strategies as any complex game, one well-planned move after another, and that's what this book is about, winning the board game. The best part is that when more women win board seats, everybody wins. It's not a game of men against women, far from it. It puts gender aside and puts shareholders first. I first became concerned about how few women corporate directors there were in 1996. I invited a small group of Los Angeles-based women corporate directors whom I knew personally. Bonnie Hill, Andrea Vandekamp, Betsy Sanders, June Lockhart, Beverly Thomas, and Vilma Martinez to get together informally, share stories and ideas, and, perhaps most importantly, to discuss why women were in the minority as directors. The women served on Fortune 500 corporate boards in other states as well as in California, and they had incredible insight. The conversation was eye-opening, energizing, and educational, especially for me. As a retained executive search professional and as a business owner for 4 decades, I have long been active in the advancement of women in the business world and a champion of financial independence for women. These women directors who gathered then and still do are definitely examples of success in both. We came together annually after that, and more Southern California women directors joined in. The conversation continued to be open, candid, and confidential. Exploring different topics each year, we talked about business challenges we faced and offered one another suggestions, solutions, and sources. The women directors gained strength in numbers, and even though most were the only women on their boards, they no longer felt alone. At the same time in New York, Susan Stoutberg also had started an informal women directors group, and Allison Winter had launched another group in Chicago. In 2003, those 2 dynamic women officially formed Women Corporate Directors, and as its co-chairs, built a global network with chapters in several major cities. They invited my group to become the official Southern California chapter. Henrietta Holzman IV in Washington, D.C., became the global co-chair. In just 10 years, Women Corporate Directors expanded to 50 chapters with more than 1,800 members who serve on 2,600 corporate boards worldwide. As you will read, there is a sea change underway. The business case for women on boards has been proved by independent research. Recognizing this, male business leaders are collaborating with women's organizations to promote the issue. We know now that the supply-side pipeline is full to bursting with board-ready women, many endorsed by their own CEOs as qualified candidates for outside corporate boards. But the demand side is the problem. The number of board seats held by women at Fortune 500 corporations remains static at only 16.6% in 2012, almost no increase over recent years. There are thousands more public and private companies in America that traditionally have had few women on their boards. The challenge is to create more demand. Proactive women's organizations, enlightened CEOs, institutional investors, and the media have come together to produce a steady drumbeat, urging corporations to increase the number of board seats for women. They are shining the spotlight on 50 of the Fortune 500 corporations that by 2013 still don't have any women directors, and on many more that have only one. I wrote this book to move this important issue forward by increasing awareness among CEOs and corporate nominating committees about the depth and talent of board-ready women. The profiles of successful women corporate directors will help women at all stages of their careers create roadmaps to become board-ready themselves. This is just one tool to increase the number of women destined to win the board game. With this book, I intend to increase awareness of research studies supporting the business case for more women on boards. Inform career women there has never been a better time to seek a seat on the board of directors of a public company. Show women how to gain board membership through wise career choices and building strategic networks. Spark conversations at dinner tables and boardroom tables about why there are so few women on the boards of directors of American corporations and what can be done about it. Applaud the advocacy and initiatives of forward-thinking male CEOs, several women's organizations, and activist shareholders. Create a guide for women on how to navigate the waters, seize the opportunities, and stay alert to potential openings on corporate boards so they will be ready to step over the threshold. More than 50 women corporate directors are here to help. They have shared their pathways, how they managed their careers to become capable, dynamic, and creative corporate directors, so others can learn from their success and follow these women into America's boardrooms. No matter what challenges they have faced, these women report tremendous satisfaction with their roles on boards. They bring different perspectives and useful recommendations about the issues before boards and clearly demonstrate the value of diversity to the decision-making process. Their common goal is to recruit more women to the highest levels of American corporations. There has never been a better time for corporate boards to bring more qualified women to the table and for women to set their sights on the boardroom as the pinnacle of their careers. The rules of the board game have changed. Why shouldn't there be as many women as men on public boards of directors, bringing their experience and judgment to govern companies and represent America's shareholders? Just look at the U.S. Congress. In 2013, for the first time in history, the 113th Congress had 20 female senators, the most ever. That's 20% of the total 100. And the House of Representatives had 77 congresswomen, 17.7% of the 435 members. If women can be trusted to run the country, certainly they can be trusted to run America's corporations. As they've done in the Senate, women should be able to take over at least 20% of the seats in boardrooms in short order. Longer term, we will see women occupying more and more board seats. I'm betting on 30 to 40% in the next few years, and eventually that percentage should be 50. The ideal minimum is 3 women on every corporate board because it takes 3 women together to truly make a difference. Since the average board has 8 to 12 people, 3 unified voices make a decided impact. As James Christie, associate publisher of Directors and Boards magazine, says, 1 woman on a board is a token. 2 women on a board might be heard. 3 women actually can make an impact. To shift the numbers, women who already sit on corporate boards must urge their colleagues to bring on other women. Shareholders must use the power of proxy and letters to CEOs to demand that at least 1 woman be nominated for every slate of board candidates. Because numbers count, activist shareholders may well be the most potent force for achieving gender parity on corporate boards in a shorter time. Research shows that corporations with women on their boards perform better than companies without. That's why investors and shareholders have a stake in this issue for business performance reasons. All investors want to make money. If more women on boards can help make that happen, shareholders should be clamoring, "Bring on more women." Let's all make gender diversity and gender equality a priority. Women can win this game. Start here. Chapter 1. Women belong in the boardroom. 1. Women belong in the boardroom. It is just as important for women to sit on America's corporate boards as it is for women to sit on the Supreme Court, in the White House, in Congress, and in civic leadership positions. It's time to bring women into the decision-making process. 144 years after the Declaration of Independence was signed, almost 5 generations later, American women won the right to vote in 1920. It took protests, hunger strikes, and women going to jail to finally prevail. Now it's been almost 100 years since the 19th Amendment was ratified. Will we need to go to similar extremes to put women into the boardrooms that control American business? Not this time. Today there are thousands of women with stellar business careers who, with visibility, strategic networking, and smart moves, can win the board game. In fact, more women are planning their career strategies and making it known that they want to be directors. 10% of the Fortune 500 boards still have no women, and only 16.6% of the seats are held by women. Those women are ready for more women to join them at the directors' tables. The stockholders certainly are ready. How do we create the demand? The research says it's high time for a change. Ultimately, value creation comes from people, says Deborah Wynn Smith, president of the Council on Competitiveness, based in Washington, D.C. Good boards are moving away from the strictly fiduciary oversight to add focus on risk, resilience, and strategic direction, and sustain their positioning for growth over time. Women directors bring excellent business experience and different leadership styles. They are often more collaborative thinkers and more integrative in ways they solve problems. Women tend to look across the landscape to connect strategy with conceptualization. Women, as Wynne Smith points out, bring a different perspective to the boardroom. As so many corporate directors I've interviewed have said, board-ready women now had the business acumen and years of experience needed to be excellent board members. They know that the board game is serious business and makes a difference not just to the American economy, but also to the global economy. The stakes are high, so corporate boards should be hustling to find women candidates, at least 3 per board. Or why not 50%? Mark T. Bertolini, Chairman, President, and CEO of Aetna, says current economic and social changes confronting the U.S. economy call for a style of leadership that requires the acceptance and advancement of the idea that companies can do well by doing good, and that the power of influence provides better results than many alternative approaches. Women are proving to be particularly skilled in these areas and will be sought after by corporations around the world. Women in leadership roles at the executive and director levels will be an essential ingredient for organizational success. Bertolini recognizes that women bring a decision-making difference to the table. Aetna already has 4 women on its 12-person board. Women's performance as directors, grounded in business acumen and decision-making expertise rather than as tokens, amplifies the obvious. Women are equal to men at running companies. That's why women are now ready to win the board game. In a strategic game, there is a defining moment, the instant when a confluence of external factors and good strategy determines the outcome. The board game is absolutely strategic, as you will learn. The object is threefold: to significantly increase the number of women serving at the highest level of American business, to encourage boards to open seats for more women candidates, and to put you in one of those seats as a director. Public awareness is growing. There is consensus that corporate boards should include more women. It is just good business. For women who want to become corporate directors, the first board seat is the hardest to win. So before you can play the game, it's important to understand why boardrooms have been dominated by men and the factors that are converging to change the rules. Why is there a gender gap in American boardrooms? Chief executive officers of public corporations report to their boards of directors. Independent directors are elected by shareholders as their representatives on the board. Shareholders vote to elect the board members, who are then held accountable for the company's performance and profits. Millions of women are shareholders, and hundreds of millions more are primary customers of American corporations, and yet, I repeat, only 16.6% of the board seats of Fortune 500 companies are held by women. We must ask, why are there so few women directors on boards? Here's some history. 1. CEOs traditionally have surrounded themselves with board members who are experienced CEOs from other large companies. Of course, according to 2012 research by Catalyst, the nonprofit source for research about working women, there were only 21 women serving as CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, slightly more than 4%. So if boards limit their candidate pool to other CEOs, there's only a very small pool of women CEOs to draw from, and they are already serving on other major boards. The criteria has to expand to include women from senior executive positions, women retired from government service, and women business owners, as well as business from academia. 2. It's a given that men have historically held the reins of American industry. Based on military experience, men have structured their companies in similar hierarchies, and it's human nature that people trust those they already know and are comfortable working with. Traditionally, men in corporate power positions have nominated new directors from their own circles of business friends, mostly men, selected from a relatively small circle of power players. They all know that serving on boards can be very lucrative. Annual compensation for board service provides attractive income for directors. Early on, the same colleagues turned up as directors on other boards, and this raised a red flag of what is known as interlocking directorates, which were banned in 1914 by the Clayton Antitrust Act. As recently as January 2012, however, the Federal Trade Commission imposed tighter scrutiny to prevent interlocking directorates from resurfacing. The FTC's action serves as a not-so-subtle reminder that boards should be on the lookout for board-ready women. 3. Board nominating committees have traditionally required that new prospective candidates have prior experience on other corporate boards, a self-limiting requirement. For years, few women served on corporate boards, so there were very few qualified women director candidates with previous corporate board experience. The boardroom became a clubby place. No place for a woman, some male directors have even been heard to say. Women who sit on previously all-male boards have observed that male directors suffer some anxiety about initially bringing a woman into their midst. One woman director explains, "You have to be pre-certified by another male director who has seen you in action and can vouch for your personality fit. That's why men tend to nominate women they have worked with on their large, nonprofit boards. Those are often the only women they know who have prior board experience." In a study conducted by women corporate directors, Harvard Business School, and Heidrick & Struggles, men and women directors were asked why the percentage of women in boardrooms was so low. Men cited lack of women in the top executive ranks as the problem. Women, not surprisingly, had a slightly different view. The candidate pool is male-dominated. Both responses are based on facts, but both situations can be changed with some concerted effort. 4. Too few women have had the experience nominating committees are looking for. The number of women in C-suite jobs, CEO, COO, CFO, CIO, CMO, always has been very low. Indeed, a 2012 study by Catalyst indicates that only 14.3% of America's top corporate jobs were held by women in 2011. That means as few as 700 women had C-suite jobs in the Fortune 500. That number is perhaps even more shocking than the fact that only 1 out of 6 board seats belongs to a woman. Despite the fact that business schools are overflowing with women earning their MBAs, the top jobs are still going to men. A longitudinal look at this issue by McKinsey & Company from 1970 to 2000 confirmed this. Although 53% of new hires at the largest companies in the U.S. were women, only 26% of those women were promoted to executive management positions as vice presidents or higher. 5. For generations, women did not know that the board of directors could be their ultimate goal. Even if a woman reached the CFO level, in most cases, she didn't expect to get invited to join a corporate board. So she didn't prepare, she didn't have the networks, and she didn't have the visibility. Perhaps she took time off from her career to raise children, and thus unwittingly took herself off the executive track. Women today have many choices about how to approach work-life balance. For example, Marissa Mayer, the new CEO of Yahoo, accepted the top job, took about 2 weeks off to have a baby, and then went back to work, making executive decisions right along with family decisions. She also serves on the board of Walmart and large nonprofits, including the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, the San Francisco Ballet, and the New York City Ballet. Those are 5 key reasons men have dominated boards. But all that is about to change. With more women corporate executives, more women college presidents, more women business owners, and more women in visible leadership positions in major nonprofits and government service, the supply side is bursting at the seams with potential board candidates. Now the job at hand is to increase the demand side by creating or opening up more board seats. One of the reasons for the slow growth is the dynamic nature of the Fortune 500 itself, explains Eileen H. Lang, President and CEO of Catalyst. Every year, large companies merge or go private. When 2 companies with women on their boards merge, only one board remains. But the next largest company then brings its board seats into the Fortune 500. So why would this be a problem for women on boards? Women directors are not evenly distributed among the Fortune 500. The largest companies tend to have more women board members. In 2012, Catalyst reported that only 19.3% of the companies had 25% or more women directors, but the lower-ranked companies had fewer or none, so the total number of seats held by women remains relatively unchanged. Look beyond the Fortune 500 for a moment. Bloomberg counts approximately 15,000 publicly traded companies in the U.S., of which about 1/3 are traded on stock exchanges and the other 2/3 are traded over the counter. Assuming those 15,000 public corporations each has about 10 members, there are approximately 150,000 seats. If women held just 30% of those seats, 45,000 women could sit on America's corporate boards. That would dramatically expand the number of women with current and prior corporate board experience, the prerequisite for larger boards. And when the numbers increase to 50%, we'll finally have a business world that is gender-balanced and, as research indicates, far more profitable. Current women directors have indicated that women who already serve in the boardrooms must take a more active role. Women surveyed said that the most effective way to build more diversity on boards is for women to be appointed as lead directors, board chairs, or chairs of the nominating or governance committees. Unfortunately, the percentage of women nominating committee chairs of the Fortune 500 has decreased over several years to 14.2%, says Catalyst. There is already a growing demand for women directors, and a larger pool of candidates is evolving that includes entrepreneurs and women working in government agencies, whose experience will bring added value to boards all over the country. Julie Hill, director of WellPoint, says, "When my boards are looking for new directors, I require that women and minorities must be included in the lists of candidates presented to the board for consideration. Period. The old excuse of, we can't find any qualified women, is no longer acceptable because it's no longer true." Global factors influencing the board game in the USA. Global factors in business have evolved concurrently over the last decade to produce a business environment that will welcome women to corporate boards. No single factor could change the game for women in American business. But with the convergence of all 7 factors simultaneously, an historic moment has arrived. It's the perfect storm, yet this storm has a potentially excellent outcome. The 7 global factors are: financial crises resulting in new government regulations, quotas in Europe mandating up to 40% women directors, women leading countries as presidents and prime ministers, globalization and technology calling for expanded expertise on boards, institutional investors and activist shareholders demanding better business performance. Directors approaching board retirement age should open seats for women. Male CEOs and women's organizations collaborating for more women on boards. In the midst of this perfect storm came the ultimate game changer. This Bloomberg headline, "Stocks perform better if women are on company boards," got people's attention. On July 31st, 2012.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?